Have you ever observed how the most significant moments in life frequently appear in the guise of ordinary days? This is precisely what transpired with Alex. It was merely another Tuesday when his neighbor Jake knocked on his door with what appeared to be a simple request. "Hey, I'm relocating to a new place this weekend. Any chance you could assist me?" Those 12 words would ultimately alter everything, even though neither of them could have possibly anticipated it at that moment. Alex was 28, employed remotely as a graphic designer, and had resided in the same apartment building for nearly 3 years. He was familiar with Jake primarily through casual hallway conversations and the occasional borrowed cup of sugar. There was something about Jake that had always captivated Alex. Perhaps it was his easy laughter or the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. Whatever it was, Alex found himself agreeing before he had even consulted his calendar. Allow me to take a moment to properly set the scene. Alex and Jake lived in one of those mid-century apartment buildings in the city, the type with creaky hardwood floors and radiators that clanked all winter long. Their apartments were located across the hall from each other, close enough that Alex could sometimes hear the muffled sound of Jake's music through the walls. They weren't close friends, not really, but there had always been a certain undercurrent to their interactions, a kind of electricity that Alex had never quite been able to identify. Therefore, when Jake requested assistance with his move, Alex's consent was not solely out of neighborly duty. There was curiosity involved and perhaps something more. The morning of the move arrived with that ideal early autumn weather. Crisp enough to require a light jacket, yet warm enough in the sunshine to make physical labor comfortable. Alex had set his alarm for 7, wishing to be prepared when Jake had mentioned the rental truck would arrive. He had spent more time than he cared to admit selecting what to wear. Something practical yet not sloppy. Something that conveyed, "I'm helpful, but also, I look good lifting heavy things." He chose a well-worn pair of jeans and a navy Henley that a former partner had once remarked brought out the blue in his eyes. Not that it mattered what Jake thought of his eyes. Of course. This was merely assisting a neighbor with a move, nothing more. When Alex emerged into the hallway, Jake was already present, leaning against the wall beside a stack of flattened boxes. "Morning," Jake greeted with that smile, the one that made something flutter in Alex's chest. "The trucks are downstairs. I thought we could begin with the boxes. I've already packed, then address the furniture." He appeared a bit fatigued, with subtle shadows under his eyes indicating he had been up late packing. His dark hair was slightly tousled, and he wore a faded band tee that Alex didn't recognize. "I truly appreciate this," Jake added. "Moving alone is the worst." "Happy to assist," Alex responded. And he genuinely meant it. As they walked downstairs together, Alex found himself pondering why Jake was relocating. In their casual discussions, Jake had never indicated plans to depart. "So, a new place far from here?" Alex inquired as they arrived at the lobby. Jake shook his head. "Just across town. Needed a change of scenery, you know. Additionally, the rent here keeps increasing. There was something in his tone that hinted there might be more to the narrative, but Alex refrained from pressing. Everyone had their reasons for moving on. The rental truck was one of those medium-sized U-Hauls, appearing slightly out of place, parked in front of their building's elegant facade. Jake handed Alex a pair of work gloves. Learned my lesson last time I moved. Blisters for days. Their fingers brushed. During the handoff, a moment of contact that shouldn't have been significant, but somehow was. Alex donned the gloves, which were slightly oversized, and followed Jake back upstairs to commence the process. The first hour was entirely business, transporting boxes down the 3 flights of stairs, organizing them efficiently in the truck, returning for more. They fell into a rhythm, collaborating well together. Despite never having engaged in anything of this nature previously, the conversation began rather minimally, consisting mainly of practical exchanges regarding the placement of boxes and alerts about particularly heavy items. However, as the morning progressed and the physical effort alleviated some of the initial awkwardness, they started to converse more openly. "So, what is it that you do again?" Jake inquired while they navigated a bookshelf through the doorway of his apartment. "I am aware that you work from home, but I don't believe you have ever disclosed your actual profession." "Graphic design," Alex responded, readjusting his hold on the shelf. "Primarily for small businesses and startups. It may not be glamorous, but I appreciate the flexibility." They paused at the top of the stairs to catch their breath. "What about you? I think you mentioned something related to healthcare." Jake nodded in affirmation. "Physical therapy. I am employed at the university hospital." He offered a slight, self-conscious smile. "That is why I often come and go at unusual hours." As they transported the bookshelf down the stairs, Alex found himself reflecting on the numerous occasions he had heard Jake's door open or close late at night, sometimes pondering where Jake might be heading. It was peculiar to recognize how little they truly knew about one another. Despite residing mere feet apart for several years, there existed a certain intimacy in assisting someone with a move. Observing their belongings, the items they chose to retain, and how they organized their lives felt almost intrusive. Yet, here they were, with Alex physically handling the components of Jake's life, packing them up and transporting them away. By midday, they had packed most of the boxes and smaller pieces of furniture. The apartment was beginning to appear vacant, exhibiting that distinctive emptiness that arises when a space is being forsaken. They opted to take a break before addressing the larger furniture items. Jake ordered pizza, asserting that it was the least he could do, and they sat on the floor of his nearly empty living room, eating directly from the box. "Thank you once more for assisting with this," Jake expressed between bites. "I realize it is a considerable request." Alex dismissed him with a wave. "That's what neighbors are for, correct?" Yet, even as he spoke, he questioned whether this was truly just a neighborly gesture. The day had taken on an unusual intimacy, the type that arises from collaborative effort and the slow disassembly of someone's residence. After lunch, they addressed the bedroom furniture, tackling the bed frame, mattress, and dresser. That necessitated both of them working in unison. The physical coordination required brought them into closer quarters, their bodies occasionally brushing against one another as they navigated through doorways and down the stairs. Each touch seemed to linger a bit longer than needed, although Alex reassured himself that he was merely imagining it. It was late afternoon when they finally loaded the last significant items into the truck. Both were sweaty and fatigued, yet there was a sense of achievement in seeing the truck completely filled. Jake shut the back door of the truck with a gratifying clang. I just need to do one final check of the apartment to ensure I didn't overlook anything, he said. Would you like to come up? The apartment appeared different, empty, more spacious, and somehow exposed. Their footsteps echoed on the bare floors as they traversed from room to room. Jake opened closets and cabinets, searching for anything that might have been left behind. In the kitchen, he discovered a mug pushed to the back of a cabinet. I almost forgot this, he remarked, holding it up. It was a plain white mug with a hand-painted design, evidently homemade. My sister crafted this for me during my college years. I would have been heartbroken if I had left it behind. It was such a trivial item, yet it revealed something about Jake that Alex had not previously known. That he had a sister, and that he cherished sentimental items. Alex found himself eager to learn more, to grasp the narratives behind the possessions Jake chose to retain. Are you close with your sister? He inquired. Jake nodded, carefully wrapping the mug in newspaper. Yes, she is 3 years younger. She resides on the West Coast now, but we communicate almost every day. He smiled, a gentler smile than Alex had previously observed. She is the creative one in the family. I inherited all the practical genes. As they proceeded with the final cleanup, Alex found himself observing the marks Jake had left on the apartment, the slightly worn area on the wall where a picture had been displayed, the faint outline of furniture on the floor. It felt oddly intimate, witnessing the imprints someone leaves on a space. When they were confident that nothing had been overlooked, they made their way back down to the truck. Are you ready to go to the new place? Jake inquired, jingling the truck keys. It's not a long distance, perhaps 15 minutes. I completely understand if you need to return to your day, however. Alex paused. Only for a moment. He had no specific plans for the remainder of the day, and something within him was not prepared for this experience to conclude. I'm committed to the entire move, he stated. Might as well see it through, correct? The drive to Jake's new apartment was filled with the type of conversation that flows naturally between individuals who have spent a day engaged in physical labor together. Jake discussed his job, about challenging patience and gratifying recoveries. Alex shared anecdotes about unusual client requests and the freelance lifestyle. There was a comfort between them now that had not existed before, as if the shared experience of the move had expedited their friendship. Jake's new residence was located in an older neighborhood with tree-lined streets and converted warehouses. The building itself had evidently once been industrial with high ceilings and exposed brick. It's somewhat of a fixer-upper, Jake clarified as he parked the truck. But the rent is reasonable and I appreciate the character. The unloading process proceeded more swiftly than the loading had been. This was partly due to their having developed an effective system and partly because they were now racing against exhaustion. They began with the furniture, assembling the bed frame, and positioning the larger items before bringing in the boxes. As they toiled, the empty apartment gradually started to take shape as Jake's new home. It was during this process that Alex started to observe something. The boxes, which had been packed and sealed prior to Alex's arrival that morning, offered glimpses into Jake's life as they were opened. A collection of well-used paperbacks uncovered a passion for science fiction. A box filled with kitchen utensils indicated someone who took pleasure in cooking. Framed photographs featured Jake with what appeared to be his family, including the sister he had mentioned, an older couple who were likely his parents, and a group of friends at what seemed to be a camping trip. One specific box drew Alex's attention. In contrast to the others, which were clearly marked with their contents, this one only had Jake's name inscribed in careful block letters. When Jake opened it, he did so with a tenderness that implied its contents were cherished. Inside were what appeared to be journals, old letters bound with string, and a small wooden box. Jake noticed Alex's gaze and smiled a bit self-consciously. "My memory box," he clarified. "All the items I cannot bear to discard, yet have no practical use for." He paused, then inquired, "Want to see?" It felt like being given something rare and precious, an invitation into the intimate corners of Jake's life. Alex nodded, placing down the box he had been holding and stepping closer. Jake retrieved one of the journals and opened it, disclosing pages filled with tidy handwriting and occasional sketches. "I went through a phase in college where I believed I was going to be a writer," he remarked with a self-deprecating chuckle. "Carried this with me everywhere for a year." He set the journal aside and picked up the wooden box. It was small, roughly the size of a deck of cards, adorned with intricate carvings on the lid. "This belonged to my grandfather," Jake said, running his thumb over the design. "He was a carpenter. Crafted this the year I was born." He opened it, revealing a pocket watch nestled in velvet. "It no longer functions, but I keep it nonetheless." There was something profoundly personal about these disclosures, about Jake sharing these fragments of himself. Alex felt a sense of warmth from the trust conveyed in the gesture. "I have a box like that as well," he confessed. "It may not be as organized as yours, but it serves the same purpose. Items I cannot part with." Jake raised his gaze, his face reflecting curiosity. "Yeah, what do you have in yours?" Thus, Alex began to share details about his own cherished items. The first logo design for which he had received payment, framed and printed, letters from his grandmother, and a smooth stone from a beach where he had once experienced a perfect day. As he recounted these memories, he became aware of how infrequently he revealed such personal treasures to anyone. They held significance solely for him. Yet, here he was, presenting them to Jake, who listened with sincere interest. The dialogue progressed from there, evolving beyond the superficial conversations they had shared as neighbors. They discussed their families, contrasting Jake's close-knit family with Alex's more complex relationships with his parents following his coming out. They talked about past romances, career goals, the cities they had resided in, and the places they dreamed of visiting in the future, all while continuing to unpack and organize Jake's possessions, transforming the vacant apartment into a space that felt like home. It was nearly evening when they finally completed their task. The truck was empty, the furniture was arranged, and most of the boxes were at least opened, if not entirely unpacked. They stood in Jake's new living room, surveying their efforts with a sense of tired satisfaction. "I cannot express my gratitude enough," Jake remarked, his tone warm. This would have taken me days if I had done it alone. Alex shrugged, feeling a bit bashful under Jake's appreciative gaze. It was actually quite enjoyable, he replied, surprised to find that he genuinely meant it. Despite the physical fatigue, the day had been pleasant in ways he had not anticipated. Allow me to treat you to dinner at the very least, Jake insisted. There is supposedly a good Thai place just around the corner. The restaurant was small and inviting, with paper lanterns casting a soft glow over the tables. They ordered an excessive amount of food, both feeling famished after the day's labor, and conversed with the comfortable familiarity of longtime friends rather than neighbors who had scarcely known each other prior to today. Alex found himself noticing aspects of Jake he had not observed before. The manner in which he gestured with his hands while explaining something he was enthusiastic about, how his laughter began softly and crescendoed into something melodious. The thoughtful way he listened when Alex was speaking. After dinner, they walked back to Jake's new apartment where Alex's vehicle was parked. The night had grown cool, and the streets were tranquil. There was a moment standing by Alex's car where something shifted in the atmosphere between them. Jake gazed at him with an expression Alex could not quite decipher. I just realized, Jake said slowly, that we're no longer neighbors. It was a simple observation, yet it seemed to carry significance. Alex nodded, experiencing a peculiar blend of emotions. Yeah, I suppose we're not. Which means, Jay continued, taking a small step closer, that I can finally pose a question I've been wanting to ask for some time. Alex's heart performed a strange flip in his chest. What's that? Would you be interested in perhaps having coffee sometime or dinner again? But as a, you know, as a date? The inquiry lingered in the air between them, altering the space. Alex felt a smile spreading across his face. I would like that, he said. I would like that very much. Jake's relief was apparent, his shoulders relaxing as he returned the smile. Good. That's good. He hesitated, then added, I have actually been wanting to ask you out for months. But it seemed complicated with us being neighbors and all. Is that why you relocated? Alex inquired, half joking. Jake chuckled. Not entirely, but I won't deny it was a consideration in my decision-making. They stood there for a moment longer, grinning at each other like fools, before Alex reluctantly stated he should probably be on his way. They exchanged phone numbers properly this time, not merely as emergency contacts, and made tentative arrangements for dinner later that week. As Alex drove home, he found himself reflecting on the unusual alchemy of the day. How a simple request for assistance had evolved into something far more significant. He reflected on the boxes they had packed and unpacked, each one holding fragments of Jake's existence. He also considered the unexpected treasure they had discovered in the rear of that moving truck. Not a physical item, but a bond, a new beginning. Upon Alex's return to his apartment building, it felt different knowing Jake was no longer just across the hall. However, as he ascended the stairs to his floor, his phone vibrated with a message. It was from Jake. Thank you once more for today. I look forward To dinner on Thursday. Alex beamed as he unlocked his door. Occasionally, the most remarkable revelations occur in the most mundane moments, such as when a neighbor requests assistance with moving, and you discover far more than boxes in the back of the truck. You uncover potential, you forge connections, and you may even stumble upon the start of love. Total. _HR_C count 18,750.